let's talk about the classification of adjective. Now, number 1 is adjective of quality. Now, let's give the example here. He is a bright student. Here, bright is the keyword. Now, question is why this is adjective? Because it is qualifying the word student, and student is noun. As we are talking about the quality of a student, that's why the name is adjective of quality. This is the number 1 classification, and number 2 is that adjective of quantity. Now, let's see the example. He has some money. Here the word some is adjective. Why? Because it is qualifying the word money. Money is noun. So, we are talking about the quantity of noun. That's why this is adjective of quantity. Now, the third one, adjective of number or numeral adjective. Now, let's see the example. He has 5 friends. The word 5 is an adjective. Why? Because it is qualifying the noun friends. Now, we can count the friends 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As we can count the number, that's why the name is adjective of number. We can also define it as adjective of number or numeral adjective. That means in the exam, if the example is given here and if you write down this as an adjective of number, your answer is correct. If you say this is numeral adjective, your answer is correct as well. Now, the last part is pronominal adjective. So, look at this word pronominal, because the word has come from the word pronoun. That means it has a relationship with pronoun. When pronoun acts as an adjective, that means a pronoun is qualifying another noun, it becomes pronominal adjective. Now, look at the example. It is her pen. We know that her is conventionally a pronoun. This is a possessive pronoun, but the question is here it is qualifying the word pen, and pen is noun. So, the name of this adjective is pronominal adjective. As it is basically a pronoun, but it is qualifying noun, it becomes an adjective. So, the name is pronominal adjective. It is no more a pronoun. Now, we shall focus more on some other examples. Here, adjective of number or numeral adjective has got some other classification. Now, we shall move on to other classification as well. Then we shall move on to pronominal adjective, because pronominal adjective has got some other ideas. And if we sum up with all these ideas, we will be able to understand almost all the classification of adjective. Okay, now the 4 examples have been written. Now, we shall move on to the classification of adjective of number or numeral adjective, because it has got some other ideas, and the pronominal adjective as well, because pronominal adjective can be classified in other 4 ways or 5 ways. So, please write down the example in your copies, then we shall write down adjective of number and we shall discuss more on adjective of number or numeral adjective or pronominal adjective. So, please write down these examples in your copies. Now, adjective of number. So, adjective of number can be classified into 4 ways. First one is cardinal number, the second one is ordinal number, third one is multiplicative, and the last one is indefinite. That means the cardinal numeral, ordinal numeral, multiplicative numeral, and indefinite numeral. So, the examples are given here: 30, 40, first, second, double, single, all, sum. So, when we talk about these examples and these words, if these words are used in a sentence and if it qualifies a noun, then it becomes adjective of number. Now, specifically if you want to identify, the name will be cardinal numeral. For example, there are 40 students. So, 40 students. So, it is qualifying students. So, the word 40 will be cardinal numeral number. Likewise, ordinal, when first is used and if it is qualifying another noun, it becomes ordinal. When we talk about multiplicative, double, when it qualifies another noun, it becomes multiplicative. When it becomes indefinite and all is qualifying another noun, it becomes indefinite numeral. So, the question is, when in the exam any word or any example is given and we are getting these words like this 30, 40, first or second or double, single, and it is qualifying another noun. So, what kind of name should we write? That is a very important thing, and students get confused about this. So, my answer is, this is a very simple thing. If you want to write cardinal numeral adjective, answer is correct. If you write this is an adjective of number, your answer is correct as well. The same case is with ordinal number, the same case is multiplicative or indefinite. Forget about all these 4. If you just identify this is an adjective of number, if you write down adjective of number, your answer is correct. If you write down it is a numeral adjective, your answer is correct as well. But for better understanding, and if you go through in details, so you have to go through with these sort of things. I hope by this you will be able to understand adjective of number or numeral adjective. Now, we shall move on to pronominal adjective. So, the first one is interrogative, then the second one is demonstrative, third one is distributive, fourth one is possessive, the last one is relative. So, these all are actually pronoun: interrogative pronoun, demonstrative pronoun, distributive pronoun, possessive pronoun, and as well as relative pronoun. But the problem is, when it is qualifying a noun, the name changes. It becomes interrogative adjective, demonstrative adjective, distributive adjective, possessive adjective, relative adjective. Finally, these all are pronominal adjective. So, if you want to write interrogative adjective, your answer is correct. If you want to write pronominal adjective, your answer is correct as well. So, now please write down this in your copies, then we shall try to discuss some of the examples. So, then the idea becomes very clear. This is a sentence. Now, which, ideally this is a pronoun, but here which is qualifying noun book, it becomes interrogative adjective or pronominal adjective. Ideally this is demonstrative pronoun, but here it is qualifying noun, it becomes demonstrative adjective or pronominal adjective. Each is distributive adjective. Here ideally this is pronoun, but here it is qualifying noun boy, it becomes distributive adjective or pronominal adjective. Possessive, we have discussed possessive adjective before, but now relative adjective. So, here that is relating, but the problem is it is actually qualifying another noun. Book is the noun here. So, the name becomes relative adjective. So, the question is, if you write down relative adjective, the answer is correct. If you are confused what kind of name will be with this example, and if you can identify this is from pronoun and pronoun is acting as an adjective here, you can also write down this is a pronominal adjective. So, both answers are correct. If you write down pronominal adjective, the answer will be correct. If you write down interrogative adjective, the answer will be correct. If you write down this is demonstrative adjective, the answer is correct. It is pronominal adjective, it is also correct. So, please copy these examples. Now, there will be some more adjectives. Now, these are most important adjectives, that is why I am just trying to give some of the examples, so that the total chapter of adjective becomes very clear to you. Now, some other examples of adjective. The first one is proper adjective. We are Bangladeshi. The word Bangladesh has come from Bangladesh. We know that the name of a country is a noun, it is a proper noun. So, any proper noun becomes adjective, the name is proper adjective. So, the main form is Bangladesh, from Bangladesh, Bangladeshi, India, Indian, China, Chinese, Britain, British. So, this is how proper adjective is formed. Remember, proper adjective starts always with capital letter. Another adjective is emphatic adjective, because it is emphasizing. It is also known as emphasizing adjective. This very book is mine. If I say this book is mine, is correct. But when I am saying this very book, that means I am giving more stress. More stress on what? More stress on book. So, students, this is very easy. Just focus on this. This very book, that means I am giving more stress on this word very, and the word is qualifying noun. So, it becomes emphatic adjective. Another example is exclamatory adjective. Now, students, there is a sign. We know that the sign of exclamation. Now, sign of exclamation is there. So, definitely there will be an extreme feelings. Maybe it is of joy, it is of sorrow, but whatever be the reason here, look at the word what? An idea. This is a noun phrase, but it is qualifying what? As there is a sign of exclamation, so the name becomes exclamatory adjective. And the last one is participle adjective. We know that the participle is formed when there is verb plus ing, but it is acting as adjective. So, here the word verb is look, ing is added, looking, it is qualifying the word glass, it becomes participle. As the participle is qualifying the noun, it becomes participle adjective. Please copy these examples. And this is how, dear students, our class ends. I think by now you must have very good idea over adjective. We have learned definition, we have learned numerous classification, we have learned some other examples of adjective as well. Now, I am going to give you some homework. You can copy the homework and there will be feedback classes, and in that class we will discuss about the examples or the homework that is given now. So, please copy the homework that I am going to write now.